Hello, you guys. Welcome to Life Discussions with Dr. Jefferson. I am your host, Dr. Jefferson, and I am hosting a platform where we have discussions about difficult topics, oftentimes things that are um, heavily taboo or stigmatized, the conversations that are difficult, nobody wants to have in our conversations, in our community. And in our community, I mean the Black, brown, melanated community. And we're going to jump into some of those things today on the show. I do have to say, as your humble host on this platform, I want to allow you guys some space to express yourselves and to be painstakingly honest, right? As we delve into some of these both polarizing, popular and unpopular, controversial topics that are typically suggested to us by the viewers, which are you guys, and other platforms where I may have or the team may have observed something and they say, hey, that's something that we need to be talking about, right? We do talk about a wide range of topics on this show, and the purpose is to bring about elevation, education, and insight, along with the wonderful component of accountability. I do consider myself a serious accountability coach when you take all things in consideration, both my personal and professional life. I am a therapist, so there is that part, right? But we're going to talk about some of the things today that are pretty controversial, and I cannot wait to delve into the topics that we have selected for you guys today. So without further ado, let me go ahead and do this pre-show so we can jump right in. I know you guys are anxious to kind of just hear what my thoughts are. So without further ado. Well, we are back, literally. So I don't want you guys to be thinking like, oh, she ghosted us. Like, you were supposed to have a show 1 week and this week, blah, blah, blah. I don't think I've done a show in 2 weeks. I want to say that it's definitely been 2 weeks. The reason being, of course, is that there is a broken thumb. And it hurts, no, like a lot of folks think like, oh, okay, a broken thumb. Like, what's that? Yeah, it's not just the thumb, it's fractured there. It's ligament damage and all that stuff. But, I'm working to get that rectified as we speak, every moment of the day. Now, the reality is I'm really avoiding scheduling the surgery because I know it's going to take a long time to recover. That's the reality. Hey, it's all about accountability, right? But that's where I've been. That's what I've got. Had a lot of things happen. Had to get a new vehicle. Had a car accident. A lot of that stuff. So now I am back. And it is my intention to have these discussions. There's been so much unfolding over the last couple of weeks that it's just too much to all take in at once. Definitely too much for me to take in at once. I will post a link to the show just in case somebody wants to come on and delve into these topics or whatever today. But I want to remind you guys that if you do come up onto the platform to have your part of the discussion seen by, heard by the viewers, you do have to cam up backstage. I have to be able to see to make sure that you're a real person. I'm really trying to prevent scammers and all that stuff from being an issue for me. It's just me today. I just posted the link both on Facebook and on YouTube. So it's there, right? It's on both platforms. I will try to keep up with the chat. It says something about post, read, something like you cannot post on Facebook profiles. I don't know, but whatever. It's posted some places. So if you want to come up on the stage and you do want to be heard about these topics, you know where to click. Okay, there is that, right? So let's jump into it. So Black Lives Matter is going to start off our discussion. Oh, let me go back. Rewind. The show is live, right? So there is that. So to rewind back to the emphasis, right, on what the requirements are. You do have to have decent lighting. You do have to have a camera on. I do have to pan the room. I want to make sure that you're a real person, no scammers. I think Streamyards has people verifying or whatever, but even if they don't, I am all for hearing opinions and thoughts and whatever, but I'll remove you if you seem like you're a scammer. Okay. I do have about an hour and a half to 2 hours to do this show. And that's what I'm going to do. Okay. So there's that. Now, without further ado, let's jump in. Black Lives Matter movement and where are they needed? Now, so the question is, where are they? I don't know how many of you invested in the Black Lives Matter fundraising efforts back in the days of Breonna Taylor and George Floyd, but I was definitely one of them. And I was not one of them just for the sake of me investing in a community advocacy movement, just because. It was because for me, I felt like we needed some representation for the many lives that are constantly lost every single day in our community, and those many lives that are lost that go unanswered, right? I feel like there is no justification for just murdering people in the streets. The situation that happened with George Floyd, yes, it unfolded on national television because it unfolded from people's cell phone that was streaming live everywhere, right? Moment by moment, play by play, and it was detrimental. But I do feel like even in instances where it's not publicized, where it's not on the news, where it doesn't make the news, it doesn't make TV, as our community continues to be impacted by mass shootings, gun violence within the community, mass shootings and gun violence at the hands of the police officers that enter our communities and don't feel safe, or they feel threatened for whatever reason. All of these situations affect the delicacy of the situation of Black lives right now. So I feel like all of it has some level, to me, right, of validity to have these people who are considering themselves to be advocates for pro-Black lives, right? I feel like that's exactly what I was expecting as a person who contributed to the fund. And I haven't seen or heard of anything as of late. So I figured, okay, I'll do a little bit of research. And here we are. This is what they have listed last. They have not updated anything as far as like their financials since 2022. And the last contribution was $1 million to the former Black Panther Elaine Brown to fund building a community project in Oakland. The Black Panther housing development was set to be the first of its type. And also condolences to the family of Louis Farrakhan, leader of the original Black Panther movement. That's just absolutely terrible. He's lost his wife. That's it's very difficult when you lose a spouse, right? Loss in general is difficult. Grief is difficult in general, but when you lose a spouse, it's like losing a part of yourself. And regardless of whether or not there is some level of anticipation because we are, preparing for those people to transition or not, I feel like that could be. It is a lot. It just is. So my condolences go out to their family and to him. So there's that, right? But so let's get into this, back to this, right? In this article, it says Black Lives Matter presented former Black Panther chairwoman Elaine Brown with $1 million to fund the Black Panther building in West Oakland and the Black-owned business that will make it thrive. So it says for affordable housing and Black businesses, plural, $1 million. And they wrote the check to her, Oakland, and the world. Mm. Mm. Yeah. So, and I'm on their website reading right now. Okay, so a couple of things, right? It's $1 million, not $1 trillion. No, that was definitely raised. So let's look at what they're expecting this to do. It says the Black Panther housing development is the first of its kind, 100% affordable housing, beyond cementing the history of Black Panther Party into the history of Oakland. The name of the building is meant to spur consciousness and give people something to fight for and protect. I just feel like oftentimes terminology can be a barrier because I feel like we already find enough to fight for amongst ourselves. Everything with us is a struggle oftentimes. That's what I see in the Black community. And I think for once, we no longer need to fight. We just simply need to stand and advocate and simply assert ourselves in non-violent, non-threatening ways. And I feel like that could be more effective. But hey, play on words, right? It's all about perception, in my opinion, essentially. So outside of the affordable housing, this project also aims to address the wealth of our communities. In the same complex, the Black Panther will house a grocery market offering fresh produce, a community garden for residents, and fitness technology centers. Okay, so this is way too little money to be able to fund an initiative that big, okay? Those are my initial thoughts, right? And let me read the rest of their article or excerpt off of this page before I give you guys my thoughts here. It says, for too long, capitalism and white supremacy have upheld and emphasized a system of punishment and erasure. That includes punishing and criminalizing poor people, unhoused people, people suffering from hunger, people struggling with mental health, drug and substance abuse, and so much more. The Black Panther building challenges this step by stepping in and demonstrating how our leaders can create conditions for Black people to thrive instead of merely surviving. We couldn't be more proud to partner with Sister Brown and continue to fight the fight for Black liberation and self-determination. Now, I do think that if this initiative had been backed or, if we had advocated to push this initiative being the first step, right? But created a progressive plan. I feel like if we had done that, we would be in a better position and we actually may be able to see the fruits of that labor, right? Of those efforts. I need to figure out how do we get to a place to where we're more proactive and more effective in establishing some level of stability for our community, right? So those are my questions. I don't know about you guys, but those are my questions. And I feel like this piece that I just read, capitalism and white supremacy, upholding this and emphasizing a system of punishment and erasure. I feel like, if we're being honest, white supremacy is not what contributes to the erasure of Black people right now. The realities are, it's us. The crime rate has gone up tremendously. Now, do I believe they are spot on when they say capitalism contributes to that? Totally. Capitalism and what is now being experienced by all of us is shrinkflation, inflation with smaller sizes by, to add injury to insult. I think that those are the biggest issues that we're facing that contributes to this system where we cannot move out of these buckets we find ourselves in and continue to eliminate and erase one another. I feel like that probably is our largest issue. But I have not seen much of anything since then. So my question to you guys is, where is the Black Lives Matter movement? There are so many other things I think they could be pushing for and advocating for. One of the things, let's just say, hey Kel, so let's just say that I agree that Black Lives Matter, the purpose of the Black Lives Matter movement is to only represent the importance of Black lives being spared by police officers. Then surely there is a space for advocacy and support around Sean Grayson's murdering Sonia Massey, right? Yeah, I'm hoping, right? Now, I guess the question for me still stands, where we hold them accountable for BIPOC people or Black people. Do we have representation for all people that are considered to be a part of the minority? And what would that look like? Because I want this to be a progressive conversation, right? So for those of you that will come and catch me on the replay, my question to you is, do you expect the Black Lives Matter movement to support BIPOC people? And BIPOC, for those of you who are not, privy to the language, that includes Black, Indigenous people of color. So that's all people that are Black and brown or melanated, right? That are Americans. And to be honest, there was a Black Lives Matter movement in Brazil. So I feel like to some extent, it extends beyond just Black people or Afrocentric people in America, right? So I want to know from you guys if you feel like the representation should expand beyond just the basic perception of what it is to be Black, right? This one. Reasonable fear discussion in our community. To the point that I made about that little piece in that excerpt on their website for the Black Lives Matter movement, right? Their organization. That one little piece that references white supremacy being a part of the issue. We're moving away from capitalism because I totally agree with the capitalistic component, but if it's white supremacy that is leading to the erasure of our people, then we have to ask ourselves, what about the many of us that's being murdered by the many of us? Because the vast majority of Black lives are ended at the hand of other Black people. And I feel like that's the discussion that we are so fearful of having, because for some reason we've told ourselves that that leads to victim shaming or something like that, right? So it does not shame the victim. It doesn't even really bring shame to the person committing the crime, but it does bring about an awareness, right? If we're to call a thing, then maybe we can reconstruct the thing. What I see is that we advocate for things that do not lead to us being able to thrive in society, but we lean towards looking at what we are incapable of doing. We look at crutches and we lean towards the crutches, and we stay in places that don't allow us to expand or elevate neither our consciousness or actual education or positions, because I don't know, maybe we find that to be a little bit more convenient. Maybe we find ourselves stuck in a rut and can't get out of it. But I think it's worth us having the conversation. So let me know what you've considered to be reasonable fears in the Black community, brown community, and what kind of conversations you're open to having about that, because I would like to have like one dedicated show where we talk about these specific things and talk about ways that we can mitigate having these fears be conditioned elements in the mindsets of the people that are responsible for policing our societies, of us, because we act as if only white officers are police officers, but they're not. We act as if Sean Grayson is Sean Grayson because he is a white man, but it isn't the reality. Black police officers commit acts of police brutality. Brown police officers commit acts of police brutality. White police officers commit acts of police brutality. And I think that these are things that happen because the people that are committing these acts have found some way to justify them being so afraid of us and the way that we are in general. And as a result, we lose our lives because they don't even know how to be around us. They don't even know how to approach us. And I wonder sometimes what that says about them. And I wonder sometimes also what that says about us. You know, I feel like it's a fair question to ask a police officer upon them interviewing for a position, the question of, are you racist? And for someone to explain what that means, like as it relates to biases, right? I think that's a very valid question, because it tells us where you have a predisposition to be, right? But I don't know how I feel about it as a qualifier or disqualifier. You guys let me know, because I feel like everybody has biases, right? But the question that I got from a viewer is the question that is the latter part of this piece, right? Is bias or the effects of bias the same as racism? And potentially, right? I think that's potentially true, depending on the extent of the bias and, you know, how far the person is willing to go or their dedication, right, when it comes to their bias. So Kelso says all lives matter, but for the Black Lives Matter movement, they cannot be effective until we hold ourselves accountable for all these Black on Black crimes and killings, rather than just the cops. I agree with that. But so I think the effects of personal biases that reside within police officers or judges or people that are required to legislators, senators. I think all of those people that hold public offices, I think that we need to start asking this question, because racism can be either way, right? And oftentimes I feel like we get so caught up in the white supremacy side of racism that we forget to ask the important questions of us, right? Um, just because we're black, brown, melanated doesn't mean that we can't be racist. We come with some predispositions as well. We have been culturally conditioned to feel a certain way towards other people as well, right? That don't look like us. We have some unjustified biases, some unjustified prejudices like everybody else, because we're just human. And so are they. But I think it's a fair question to put that on an application. I think that we have to start asking the difficult questions. Are you racist, right? And then explaining what racism is. It's racist if you specifically have quarrels with this particular group of people just based on their race, color. That's it, right? And then ask the question about what are some of your biases? Because here is what I find. I find that the more aware we are of our biases, the more effective we are in overcoming some of the hurdles that we placed in front of ourselves as a result of maintaining some of those biases and prejudices. So I think that we need to become more aware of, and then there are programs that are then created to help us mitigate some of the negative effects of people holding some of these prejudices and biases. Those are my thoughts. You guys let me know kind of where you sit on it, what your thoughts are, okay? Because I really think that that's what should go on these job applications, or, well, not even a job application. I think it'd be great to ask the question during the interview, right? During your interview for employment, when you're going through your process of screening. Because I feel like, oftentimes this is a question you got to ask while you're in front of somebody so you can really judge their physical disposition. Body language, right? Tells you a lot about a person and how they're responding to the question, how they're taking the question. That's kind of where I am on that, right? So as a result of, because I kind of lined everything up to segue into one another, right? Black Lives Matter movement, their purpose, where they're needed right now. Sonia Massey, Sean Grayson, that kind of situation. All of that stuff kind of goes in and leads into where we are right now, talking about the dissemination that we make between police officers murdering people of color versus the way we look at people of color murdering people of color. So insurance and life transition preparation, I feel like, is what we need to, as a community, collectively do to increase I don't know, I just have basic preparedness, right? Because the preparation that we do have when we have these untimely deaths in our community, we know if there is an increased risk for our family members, our children, our cousins, our friends losing their lives in our community. Because unlike most people sit and believe that, many of these shootings are just random, the vast majority of shootings are targeted. They're not just random shootings. That's why most of these cases end with the statement of there is no threat to the community, even though the shooter may be still at large. Because targeted shootings is what our community specializes in. And it's sad to say that, for lack of a better word, but literally that's a truth that we need to sit with, and we need to be finding out how it is that we can reconstruct the mindsets of the people behind the shootings. Because what I see politicians doing is targeting the part that's touchable but avoiding the untouchable topic, right? So they don't talk about how it is that we need to do better in, being accountable for educating and holding our kids accountable, giving them basic moral understandings and underpinnings of life. But they talk about what they need to do to prevent guns, as if guns walk up, meet them, and decide to come back and shoot you or them. Guns do not kill people. People kill people. And the reality is, it matters not whether or not we have effective gun laws. What matters is we have to start at the bottom and move our way up, right? We have to start reconditioning or deconditioning the mindsets of entitlement and lack of accountability, you know, immoral societies. We have to decondition that and move to implementing moral principles and understanding some religious underpinnings and spiritual accountability into these kids, because it starts with them. And in conditioning that, we hold them accountable, and the punishments are just, for they make sense for the what they did, right? And during the time of incarceration, I think that we need to have more effective incarceration programs, so rehabilitation programs. And we need to talk about how it is that we can contribute to the understanding of the importance of having life insurance and health insurance and basic insurance, right? So that when these untimely deaths do happen to occur, we're not further burying our families, our legacies, potential wealth in debt. Because that's really the things that keep us behind. Like, and I know many Black people are going to watch this and you guys are going to want to come for me, but here's the reality. Bring receipts. Bring your receipts. Bring your receipts. Because the realities are, when people die unplanned as a result of their life choices, because they are murdered, they are taken away from us prematurely. And yes, it's unfair. We have to sit with the realities that some of us never said anything about the way they live their life, but we knew. Some of us never did anything to help show them a different way, but we were very much aware that they were going down a dark hole, a path that they couldn't return from. I think that we have to hold ourselves accountable, not blame ourselves for how it is or what happened to them, but hold ourselves accountable as to what it is about our behaviors that needs to change in order to prevent the things from happening again to another family member. And one of the things that needs to happen is a conversation about insurance planning, vetting, and final will and testament, living will, what it is that you want done with your organs, whether or not you want to become an organ donor or not, donate your body to science or have yourself buried or cremated. All of these conversations, these are the conversations that I feel like we have to start having with our children. And we have to grow comfortable having them so it doesn't seem as if we're planning for their lives, but that we're being realistic about not only that life can end as a result of doing criminal activity or unsavory activity, but also that life can end at any point. We could just be walking down the street and then find ourselves in a car accident. Car hits us, somebody runs us over. Like, the realities are, these are just normal things that happen. Sometimes people's lives end before they're 70. So you don't have until 50 to get insurance. You don't have until 45 to start getting insurance, right? Paying into a policy. You don't have that kind of time because it could happen at any point. And then the people that are responsible for funeralizing you, for making sure that you're taken care of, those people are financially inconvenienced. Regardless of how much we want to admit it or say it, talk about it, it puts us in a difficult financial situation. So I feel like we need to be having those conversations. We need to be vetting life insurance in the same way that women vet these wigs and lashes and all the other things that we do, the eccentricities, right? Makeup, all of the stuff that we put our money into every single day, we can reallocate those funds and put some of it to the side for life insurance. I'm not saying all of it now, because we're still going to need to get this hair done. We're still going to need to get all of those things that we know we don't need. We're going to need that makeup. We're going to need all of our things that we're committed to, living out and maintaining. And many of us have an addiction of some sort, even if it's not just the makeup, lashes, and basic maintenance kind of situation. The vast majority of society right now smokes weed or something. So even if you got to take out of that stash, which is also increasing your risk factor for early ending of life, even if you have to take out of what you've provisioned for that stash, start taking it out of there. We have to be realistic when we're having these conversations, because we can't just throw things out there as if anybody could, at the drop of a dime, create this plan and put it into action. We have to do it in a way that suits the person that we're having a conversation with. And you guys know your loved ones. You know your loved ones. We know all of our friends, family members, and stuff. We know what they have an affliction for, right? So we can talk to the specific things that could help them prepare for if their lives were to be ended soon or sooner than anticipated at 70. But so I feel like that's where I am on that. You guys let me know how soon you think it is that we should be having these conversations with family, and how much should we normalize it. So we're gonna jump right into this relationship talking. I am right par for the course. Okay, I said I was gonna be off here before 10 o'clock, and I might be. So we're going to jump right in here, right? Relationship topic. Is it appropriate to discuss gender identity with your 4-year-old? In your opinion? And then, same question, is it appropriate to discuss gender identity with your 9-year-old? And then the next question is your 13-year-old. And as I give you guys my thoughts, I want you to be thinking about your own personal thoughts and reflection prior to having this conversation with me, and how important you think that is. Currently, right now, a point of contention in the state of Georgia, in specifically Cobb County, there are several books being removed from the shelves of the school libraries. And those books are being removed for the purposes of attempting to shelter the minds of the influential children that have a potential to pick those books up from elementary to high school. The books are considered to be sexually explicit. Now, I think that, if we're sexualizing things, maybe. But I think gender identity is important. There is a book that I oftentimes recommend to patients that come in for therapy and parents who come in for like parenting classes and seminars and workshops and co-parenting, things like that. And the book is called It's Not the Stork. And if you guys haven't heard of it, go check it out. I think they sell it on Amazon too, right? Sorry. So this book is a play-by-play of the process of babies or human beings coming to be. So, of course, it talks about body parts of both males and females, how people are assigned genders based on, anatomical and physiological components of their bodies. It talks about the process and the transition that a woman goes through during the process, the phases of childbirth, and the process that the woman goes through during the process of the fetus development as well. So that all of these different phases with the proper labels and terms for body parts and cellular composition and things like that, all of these things are detailed in the book. that book would also be banned because it does not include an alternative gendered person. So I just want you guys to sit with this for just a second, okay? Sexual orientation is one thing, but gender identity, right, is important. It is. It's really important, and we sometimes do not call a thing a thing. We won't call things mental health disorders because we cannot be disordered, right? We're like superhumans. We're black. Somebody told us that. I think that definitely falls under eccentric thinking. But we have to understand there has to be a baseline, right? Even if we're going to introduce the idea that a person can choose to identify however they want, select the pronouns that they prefer, we still have to introduce a baseline. And I think that that's necessary so that children have a realistic understanding of where things begin as far as like life and what is appropriate as far as like touch, good touch, bad touch, all of these things, right? We have to account for all of that. So I think that we're being disingenuous when we say, oh, well, we don't need to talk about gender identity to our 4-year-old who is curious and based on psychosexual development are having certain nerve endings respond in a certain way that brings about curiosities about their own body, female or male. And then that moves into a different phase of life at the age, that's why I put the intervals that I did. At the age of 9 to 11, there is a different part of life that's happening, transitioning physically, right? And psychologically that these children are going through as they move through the phases of development. If we're allowing space for a different type of conversation around gender identity to happen at these 3 intervals, by the time a child becomes 14 to 17 identity crisis, they're not facing gender identity crisis. They're just going through regular, who am I? What do I stand for? Crises, right? They're also probably going through the regular crises of what am I sexually attracted to, drawn to, right? And they can determine what their sexual identities or orientations are then. And you know what? I don't care if they decide at that point that they're curious about other alternative gender identities. Allow them space to do that then. But we have to create a baseline first. Because how can you be a different gender identity if you don't even have a baseline of genders to identify from, self-identify from? I mean, I don't know. Those are just my thoughts, my rambles. You guys let me know what you're thinking, okay? But please come with the receipts. Make it make sense, okay? All right. So I would like to thank you guys for watching, and I am going to jump on out of here because at the end of the day, I got to get some rest, you guys. Like I really do. I think I'm going to take me a sleeping pill and go to sleep because like this is the absolute most painful experience outside of being shot that I've ever had to go through. And like, you know, I think it's just it is. It's uncomfortable. Period. I just need to lie down and just relax or something. Take a load of it off it. Whatever. There's that. Do not forget to let me know that you caught me on the replay. If you found this information or this introduction to information, should I say, as useful, and you have thoughts about or reflections about how it is that we delve into the topics that I've introduced in this session, then go ahead, hit the like, follow, subscribe button wherever you are. I'm not sure. Facebook is different. The interface is different than YouTube. And let me know how you guys would like for me to continue and have these discussions that I've kind of segued partially into. Also, I'm curious how many other people are wondering where the Black Lives Matter movement is on all of the money that we've donated. Yeah. I have so many questions. I have so many questions, but also I kind of feel ripped off too because I see nothing. I'm kind of a person that I'm patient because these things take time, right? But you need to introduce some kind of plan or something. Yeah. I don't know. You guys let me know what your thoughts are, and I will catch you on the next one. Until then, later days. Bye.